And so I call my parents and I'm like, I'm with Eddie Murphy, and my dad and I used to watch Saturday Night Live, so he knew who Eddie Murphy was. And he was like, "You're drunk, get home," right? And I was like, "No, I'm going to bring Eddie Murphy home. Like, they're going to give me a ride home in a limo." And he was like, "You get home right now. You're drunk." So
good.
Bad decisions. Bad decisions. Bad decisions.
Welcome back to the Bad Decisions podcast, where we lead not with celebrity, but with story. My next guest is a friend for more than 20 years and has some of the best stories I've ever heard. Paula Williams is a former model. She was head of production at Larry King. She was head of production at a commercial production company. She was a graphic designer, a silence breaker, a Me Too activist, a sexual assault agency board member, and she is one of the first people to take down Harvey Weinstein. And I'm proud to have played a tiny part in that. Welcome, Paula.
thanks for having me, Scott. I'm so excited.
We always have fun.
We do always have fun. And I've only done podcasts for like all the Harvey Weinstein stuff. So it's fun for me to like do this with a friend. So
yeah, same. So before we get into your interview, I just kind of want to set the table with how we met. You were at the time, you were dating Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains, and then you moved in next door to me. Our balconies faced each other because we had it's a terribly designed building. And I had just come back from a 2-day ecstasy bender at the Playboy Mansion, and I brought 2 new friends home with me. Tell the folks at home that story.
I peeked over the balcony. I think we used to smoke back then, right? And or something like that. And I think I peeked out there to see if you were out there or to bum a cigarette or something. And I just happened to catch some action happening over there. And I got to say, I was like, I was kind of taken back. But what I saw,
and I caught you. I caught you. I thought it was funny.
Right?
Yeah, I'm literally having a threesome on my couch facing Paula, and I go, "What are you doing, you peeper?" And she was like, "Oh my God, I didn't." And Paula says, "I didn't want to peep, but I couldn't stop peeping." And I was just like, oh, "Okay."
I mean, I've seen some stuff. I mean, as you can imagine, but I really wasn't expecting that from my new ginger neighbor.
Yeah.
With the guy from Alice in Chains, right? But no.
Yeah. Those were good days. I should have appreciated them more. Paula, I always like to start with the origin stories. You grew up in Washington State, and you were always a music fan. What was your first concert, first album?
Oh, well, this is embarrassing. I won tickets to Kenny Loggins, and that was from KISW Seattle Press Rock. Yeah. They had like a van that would drive around. And, I was probably 11 years old, I think. I wasn't driving. My dad was driving. But we won tickets, and then we went to Kenny Loggins. And it was rocking. Like, he came out with an acoustic guitar, like, I think through something, and there was smoke. And it was at the Paramount Theater, which is like a really cool theater up here. So it was quite an experience. But that wasn't a concert of my choosing.
What's the first one of your choosing? Because my first was like Barry Manilow, but my first concert of my choosing was Kiss, and my second was Queen. So I got off to a pretty rockin' good start.
Yeah, I think my first was Loverboy and Quiet Riot. Nice. And then it was pretty good. And then after that, I believe it was Van Halen. Can't go wrong with that.
Well done. Solid bit of Americana. It's funny. So many of your great stories are kind of centered around your years globetrotting as a model. And I always tell men, do not try to impress models. They may be younger, but they've seen everything. They know everyone. You cannot impress them. Just be nice. Because it's just fatal when you try to do that. So
this is why we're friends, by the way. This is why we're friends.
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah. Totally. And So let's jump right in. Long before you were in LA, you were a teenager, and your friend was dating, who I also know, was dating Eddie Murphy. Which,
Oh, now we're
tell us
going.
that story.
Now we're going way back. Like, I'm embarrassed to even say how old I was. We won't, because it's kind of horrifying. We were young, I should say. And forgive me, Aja, if you don't like me telling this story, but it's so funny, and I feel like there's a time thing when it's been this long that it's all okay with everybody.
Yeah.
Like once you hit your 50s, like it's all okay. Every story is okay, right?
Tragedy plus time equals comedy. Yeah.
Thank you. So, so my girlfriend Aja, she was going to go see Eddie Murphy with her boyfriend at the time, and he couldn't go for some reason, so she took me. But we wanted to go out to Seattle and dance at the gay clubs, because that was like the fun thing to do, and it was like new wave time then, smoking cloves, and I think we wanted to buy some cocaine. You know, and
as you do.
Yeah, and I mean but we're just gonna go to the gay club, so it was just to stay awake so we could dance, and so we were trying to scalp the Eddie Murphy tickets, and so we went behind. I think this was the Seattle Coliseum. We went behind to where like all the trucks were and all the production stuff was. And now this is a comedy show, so it's not like a concert that we would see backstage or whatever. It's, so I didn't think much about going to the back area. And I don't know how this happened, but apparently Eddie was back there and he was going to, the back entrance, the backstage, I guess. And he saw Aja and Aja was gorgeous, as she still is. And just like, had a thing for her, like love at first sight. And so his security guard came out to us. We're trying to scalp tickets, by the way. And so we think we're getting busted by security, right? Because it's against the law. Also, we knew we were doing something bad with, the money or something. We were very guilt-ridden. And he was like, hey, do you want to see the show? And we were like we had our ticket, so we didn't know what to say. And he's like, well, Eddie would like to invite you as his personal guest. So we didn't sell the tickets. In fact, we got stuck with the tickets because we had to go in right then. But then we had front row seats, like right in front of Eddie. And it was like, he was in his prime. It was like right out the gate, right after Saturday Night Live. And it was so awesome. We had such a great time. And anyways, we fall in love with Eddie Murphy, as you do, right? Just laughing the entire time. And he looked good. Like he was hot, right? And so
is he still doing the leathers thing, the full leather jacket with the no shirt and the leather pants? So cool.
I don't remember. Maybe I'm thinking that in pop culture.
Oh, that was Delirious. That was early. That was like his first breakout one. Yeah.
He was young. Yeah. So, which is funny to think he was such a celebrity and he was only like 19. You know what I mean? Like maybe 20, 21. I'm not sure. But anyway, so it's like love at first sight. We hang out with them after. And I think we go cruise around Seattle in a limo, and we go to like Jimi Hendrix's grave, and who was the kung fu guy?
Bruce Lee.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So we did some grave touring, and then I had to go home. I was living with my parents. Aja was living on her own, and they were going to fly out to LA, right? This is one night I'm meeting Eddie Murphy. And so I'm like, I need a ride home. I live like an hour south of Seattle in Tacoma. Oh, we go to his hotel to get some things ready. And it's the Four Seasons. And do you guys remember when they were like, and there might still be in nice hotels, like phones in the bathroom? Like, and so
of course.
Right? Because it was before cell phones. So you'd be like, I'm in the bathroom at the Four Seasons, right? And so I call my parents. And I'm like, I'm with Eddie Murphy. And my dad and I used to watch Saturday Night Live, so he knew who Eddie Murphy was. And he was like, you're drunk, get home, right? And I was like, no, I'm going to bring Eddie Murphy home. Like, they're going to give me a ride home in a limo. And he was like, you get home right now, you're drunk. So
good.
So cut to, oh my God, this is so funny. So we drive to Tacoma, Washington. It's like 45-minute drive from Seattle.
Yeah.
And we're hungry and we stop at a Denny's, which is forever known out here as the Eddie Murphy Denny's, by the way, because we go to Denny's in the middle of the night. Eddie Murphy goes in there and gets a plate of French fries. And like you can imagine the waitresses and the people like at the bar at Denny's. We're just like,
just bedlam.
She's in his rubber. It was cool.
Wait, he's still in the stage uniform, stage costume?
He might have switched, but he's dressed like a rock star, you know?
Yeah, amazing. Okay.
Yeah, and anyway, so that was a funny thing at Denny's. Then we go to my parents' house, and he doesn't quite all the way come into the house because, and forgive me, but our dog had never seen a black person before. I mean, it was a different time. He was like a poodle terrier, and he lost his mind on Eddie Murphy. And so Eddie Murphy's bodyguard, who was his friend, Larry, he had like, his entourage, by the way, they were just as funny as him. I need to add that. His whole crew they were hilarious, right? The banter. They were out funnier than him, really, you know, because he was all business working, you know. So, so he didn't come in all the way. So he stood on like this entryway rug that to this day in our family is called the Eddie Murphy rug. And so my parents would be like, anybody that come over, you know, Eddie Murphy stood on that rug. And they'd be like, no way, right? Like, and my mom just passed recently and the whole family's like, what happened to the Eddie Murphy rug? Like everybody wanted it.
So were your parents just kind of gobsmacked, awestruck when you actually walked in the house with him? Like, what was their physical reaction?
Totally shocked, but very polite. And my mom was like, I'll get you a cup of coffee, you know? And then Aja left and went to LA with Eddie Murphy. And so then somehow I'm on a plane visiting like maybe a couple weeks later. And this is, I'm trying to think of what time this was, but all I know is Carlos and Charlie's in LA was the club. And so I remember that's where we would hang out. And like Prince hung out there. And like, it was like a cool scene in the 80s.
Amazing. So jumping forward a little bit, I mean, you're always in the room. You're like Forrest Gump. You were
guest of a guest.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, you were in the eye of the storm of the whole birth of the Seattle grunge movement, and you were in that scene. I know you were very close with the late great producer Rick Parashar. And just to give everybody at home a little tee up, you know, he did Pearl Jam's 10, Alice in Chains, Temple of the Dog, Blind Melon. Who else am I forgetting?
Well, all the grunge.
Everyone but Nirvana, pretty much, right?
Nirvana. How about that? Yeah.
So Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, yeah.
And,
Amazing. I loved his sound.
I want to say like Candlebox, Blind Melon, like there were others, smaller ones, you know, in there. And they had a studio called London Bridge. London Bridge is still there, actually. And this is like where all the magic happened. And so, yeah, Rick was really cool. And I did feel like Rick was responsible for a lot of that sound. You know, it's really too bad he's not here because he would have loved your show, you know, like,
it was so brave and so courageous because, you know, you and I were just talking and rock and roll needed deconstruction. Everything was so wet and so overproduced and so studio. And it was just, everyone was using gear to use gear, gated reverbs and eventide harmonizers and all that gooey, and everything sounded like Def Leppard Hysteria, which I like, or Robert Palmer's Addicted to Love with the explosive room-filling drums. And then all of a sudden, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden come out, and I thought, oh my God, this sounds like guys in a garage. It's all bone dry, and it sounds real and authentic, and it was, and it stands the test of time for today. But you got to have balls to just say, yeah, everything that's happening right now, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, and I was kind of involved with the LA glam scene. Like, of course, you know, I was with Tracy Guns from LA Guns for a few years. And so I was deeply involved in that scene. And, you know, I remember there was a time where I was like, yeah, Tracy, maybe cut the hair, maybe. And Tracy was actually very innovative, and he had his own style, and he was like quick to do it. And he went from like cowboy boots to combat boots. And he kind of did a more of like a punk rock James Dean look with the leather jacket, white t-shirt, slick back hair. And but it's like it was a little ahead of its time because like the LA Guns N' Roses fans didn't like that. And they wanted the long hair still, right? So he was a little ahead of the curve, you know?
Right, but people don't realize, you know, like the first time I saw Guns N' Roses, and I can't, Troubadour, maybe Whiskey, I can't remember. Like Axl came out in chaps and a hot pink thong. And I tell people that, they're like, there's no way. And I'm like, yes, way. Like they were glam too. Everybody was glam back then.
Well, and I will say, and not to sell Jerry Cantrell out because I love him dearly, but he was glam before. I mean, Alice in Chains even. Oh, I have pictures. Sorry, Jerry.
You always got
hair, lipstick, yeah, like all those guys were kind of glam, you know. But they changed early. They were the first to really go back to the roots and classic rock and really embrace that. And
also. Viewers and listeners, Paula was the one. I'd met Tracy before through Paula, but Paula was the one to help convince Tracy to come on my show, which stands in the, you know, by far the top 3 most popular episodes. So thank you again for that.
You guys did a good job, yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. I love him. Fun. He's so thoughtful and nice and interesting, and a good storyteller. Yeah. Anything from your time with Tracy other than the Corvette bursting into flames?
The burning Corvette. One thing I don't think you know about the burning Corvette, because you did hear that story, which was a pretty cool story in itself. Yeah. But going back to my younger days as a music fan, I had a VHS of Motley Crue, and it had some behind the scenes. I don't know if you remember this, but it was like Nicky Sixx getting his first cool car, and it was that 1984 Vet that Tracy ended up buying. And I had said to Tracy, like that stuck in my head as a kid, like, I want that car, meaning a car like that. But I had said to Tracy, I want that car. Like, I've always wanted that car. And he actually bought that car. Like, like the license plate said 6 on it, and which we should have kept. But I was embarrassed driving it, people thinking it was Nicky Sixx's car. And then, of course, when Tracy would drive it, they'd really think that. So we felt like posers, you know. So we changed the license plate, I think, to Fool, which is pretty funny. But that's what Tracy and I used to call each other.
Yeah, he talked about it on the show. He'd be like, hey, Fool, I don't think smoke's supposed to be coming out of the air conditioning. So you have had like the most diverse array of jobs of anyone that I've ever met. So let's start from the first one that pops into my head, Rupert Murdoch. You worked for Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah, we were just talking about this. Funny enough, I know Scott and I seem very glamorous, but we were both with the same temp agency in LA.
Yeah, we were just scrubs.
We were total scrubs. And like nobody talks about their temp jobs, but I had some cool temp jobs. Thank you, Jules Friedman from the Friedman Staffing Agency. He got me some cool temp jobs, and one of them was when Rupert Murdoch bought Fox, and he was this at the time a very charming Australian man, older, and we worked very close together because I was in charge of doing his newsletters, which was like a newsletter about him and anything that he was buying and selling at the time, which I want to say was like crazy stuff, like AT&T or, you know, just the craziest stuff. And so he was involved in a lot, obviously the purchase of Fox. And so he would bring in periodicals from around the world that he wanted me to put in the newsletter. And this is how long ago it was, Scott. Like, it was cut and paste. Like, I would cut the trades, you know, Hollywood Reporter, whatever it was, and I would paste up and then go to the Xerox room. I can smell it now. And make copies for everyone on the lot and his friends and stuff. And that was my job.
Was it daily? It was like a daily press kit?
Mm-hmm. Daily.
How interesting. You mentioned that in the entire 6 months or whatever it was you worked directly for Rupert Murdoch, he ate the same exact thing every day for lunch. What was it?
Yeah. It was iceberg lettuce with a can of tuna on top and some saltine crackers. The most boring thing, and it was every day the same lunch. And now, granted, there's a commissary on the Fox lot, like, and also he could have had anything, and that's
Yeah,
what
he could have gone full Anna Wintour and just ordered whatever he wanted every day.
And it was so simple and just so generic, and it kind of makes you think he's a genius, obviously, like to eat something like that every day. Like he obviously had other things on his mind, he didn't want to think about food,
Yeah, it's just like how Einstein wore the same clothes every day.
Exactly.
Because he didn't want to expend brain power on unimportant, frivolous things.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you went from like the whitest guy ever, the Australian billionaire, to literally working for criminals at Death Row Records, working for Suge Knight, Dr. Dre were your bosses, and you got the job strangely from, if I have this correctly, from Nigel Harrison from Blondie. Is that right?
Yes, he was doing A&R. He was a great A&R guy too. He was doing A&R at Interscope Records. And so I was filling in for somebody at Interscope at the time that Death Row was integrating into Interscope. And so Nigel was on the same floor. It was the same floor, but like across the lobby, right? Like in another section.
Yeah.
It was Death Row Records. And I believe they had to go through the Friedman agency, oddly, and I was already there. So they were like, let's just put Paula over at Death Row. And my job was to integrate them into a legit record company. And I'll tell you something, nobody at Interscope wanted to deal with them because they were scared.
I'm sure.
And I was scared, but I must have really needed the money, right? And so I always say I got that job because nobody else wanted it. And I was like, these are real gangsters? Like they kill people? And like, I'm like, is your chair comfortable? Do you got the right phones? Do you need any pens? Like, it was bizarre, but they were actually very polite. And, Snoop would come in sometimes. He wasn't there every day. Dre and Suge were. And, Snoop would come in sometimes just reeking, as you can imagine. And the great thing about Snoop is he was exactly the same then as he is now. Like that guy never changed. And he's just so sweet and so fun and just so high.
Yeah, Snoop, I don't know him, but we've crossed paths a few times, and he's just like always got a smile on his face. He's an upbeat, positive, happy guy.
Well, yeah, and when you're scared of the gangsters, like all the people of Death Row Records, like, and then Snoop comes in, it like really lightens it up,
Yeah, I was do you remember Bar One?
Of course, yeah.
I was there one night, and Suge Knight comes in, and he's got like the giant diamond earring, and he's at the bar, and he's wearing this kind of terracotta colored suit with like a black turtleneck and like a big necklace. And I'm with Jason Biggs, and Biggs goes, he goes, I'll buy you a drink if you attempt to talk to Suge Knight. And I go, hey, Suge, what's up? And he kind of leans into me and goes,
oh, no.
And I was like, okay, all right, got it. And it was like the scariest nonverbal. I'm shaking my head no to everybody else. So any anecdotes about Suge or Dre themselves?
No, but I will say that their girlfriends came in and they didn't like me and I was gone. Like the girls the girls were ruling over there. Like, and that was,
I get it.
Yeah. So
yeah, girls don't like tall, skinny, hot, blonde models.
No.
It's a thing.
Their girls are not, and I was done. So
they were not down. Okay, so
I never talked about that time because like I was so embarrassed that I was working as a secretary or a bookkeeper or whatever. But like now it's like, no, those were cool jobs. Like if you got to pay the rent,
Look, I'm always just here to collect stories. So like give me a story, and to me that's a win. And I think you're similarly a seeking spirit. You're like doing it for the plot, as the kids today say.
Yeah, totally.
So then you went from Death Row, and I don't know if this is the correct order, it doesn't matter, to Larry King. What was that like?
Oh, well, that's totally different because, I was in LA and I moved to New York. I had a whole life in New York, right? But I
Mm-hmm.
came back to LA and getting involved with Larry King was pretty cool because he was so iconic. I mean, my whole childhood in the middle of the night would be watching Larry King. He was always on TV.
Yeah.
So his voice just becomes like part of your, just part of your growing up. You know what I mean? So it was really crazy because oddly, my office was right next to his. So we shared a wall. And so and he'd be really loud and he swore, he'd be on the phone, like, just swearing like a New Yorker,
Yeah. Yeah. He's a Brooklyn Jewish guy.
Yeah, and he got me swearing too because you kind of had to work with him, and I
Right.
never went back. I just keep swearing, I can't. It's 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 a great way to express yourself, so I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be really funny because I'd hear him, and it almost sounded like the TV was on next door.
I'll bet. Totally. That's so funny.
And I worked with him through the Harvey Weinstein stuff and the Me Too movement. And you can imagine he's kind of a womanizer type. He was quite a personality with the ladies. And so I think it was a little sketchy in the office. I mean, it was really uncomfortable because here I am, the head of production, coming out publicly against Harvey Weinstein, and Harvey Weinstein was still ruling Hollywood at that time, so everybody was like, oh my God. Like, it was pretty freaky. And I think everyone really wanted to protect Larry, but Larry, that was a different kind of old Hollywood dude,
Yeah. And, it's a tricky, sometimes gray area. I forget who actually said this phrase, but, men are as loyal as their options, and when you're that famous, you have a lot of options, and temptation's a very tricky thing.
Yeah.
I think everybody, best laid plans, everybody tries to be Jay Leno, but temptation's tricky.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll jump back to Harvey, but I want to do some sort of tweener stuff too. So you took Anna Nicole Smith out on her very first night in Hollywood when she was rooming with our friend Sarah at the Playboy Mansion. Let's hear it.
Yeah. By the way, funny segue is we were trying to set Sarah up with Larry King, but I mean, I guess he was too old. Not for Anna Nicole, funny enough, but funny segue. So Sarah, and forgive me, Sarah, if you don't want everybody to know, but Sarah did Playboy, and then she reneged her contract. I don't know, her Christian family or something wasn't. But anyways, when she was shooting, she was staying at the Playboy Mansion, and by the way, the best pictures I've ever seen of her. You know what I mean? Like, those were some good pictures. She was staying at the Playboy Mansion. She had a roommate, and so I went to pick her up one day, and I met Anna Nicole Smith, and she was a big woman, right? Like, and Sarah had told me on the phone, like, yeah, Hef's really into my roommate. Like, he thinks that she'll probably be the next Playmate of the Year, which is what you want because that's where you get the big money, right? Like,
sure.
As you know, like, Playmates.
Where you get any money, yeah.
It's not. I think back then they were making like $12,000. It's like $1,000 a month. You know what I mean? Like, just to be she wanted to be Playmate of the Year. So Sarah was kind of bummed too because she was like, I'm probably not in the running for that. Anyways, so I was shocked to see. I know it sounds awful now, but back then that she was such a big girl. And and she was totally like from the South, like backwoodsy, didn't know anything. And we kind of felt sorry for her, and so we took her out. And I don't know if you remember, but there was a place called the Sunset Social Club across from Chateau.
Of course, that was Jim Morrison's club originally, and then it became Union after that.
That's right, and it was, I believe, Art Davis owned it. I don't remember that dude. But so I call Art to make sure we can get a table there. And to get a good table, I say, hey, I'm bringing 2 playmates, right?
Mhm.
And he's like, oh, good. I'm going to sit you ladies right in front, right? Okay, yay, We get there, and he sees Sarah. He falls in love with Sarah. He sees Anna Nicole. Her name was Vicky Smith back then. Right? It wasn't Anna Nicole, but that's what she became.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Vicky
Okay.
Smith. And he pulls me aside and he says to me, he goes, they're playmates, right? And I was like, yeah, I just picked them up from Playboy Mansion. And he goes, what is it, Hugh Heffers now?
Dark.
I know. I thought you'd like that.
It is an interesting choice for Hugh Hefner, because even though she did have an amazing face and hair and presence and all that,
Yeah.
but Playmates were pretty much all the same type. His type, all heads dunked in the same bottle of single process blonde, same spray tan, same boob job. So this was a departure for him. What do you think he saw in her?
I still have no idea what anybody saw in her, because she was as dumb as a stump, and I don't say that about a lot of people.
Well, you don't need to be smart to be a model. We've both found examples of that.
You'd think he'd have to be interesting or, something. And she just was so vapid. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was her childlike charm, which was very a la Marilyn Monroe, I suppose.
Yeah.
We all know Marilyn.
Do you remember that movie Gia with what's her name? Angelina Jolie.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite line in that movie is where she calls Wilhelmina up on the phone the night before her first shoot. And she goes, Willie, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I'm nervous. And she said, Gia, darling, talking is not required of this job. It is, in fact, discouraged.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of gold, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That was a good movie, by the way.
So good. So in a less funny story, and get into it or not as much or as little as you want to. You were with River Phoenix, Flea, Johnny Depp, Christina Applegate the night River Phoenix died.
Yeah.
Tell us about that night.
Again, it must be like an age thing or something, because I never talk about this story because it was so dark and just heartbreaking. But yeah, I was with our friend Sean that and Christina Applegate. And I think we were with a couple other girlfriends. And, we went to the Viper Room, and there was like a jam happening that was Flea and John Frusciante, Johnny Depp. And we were hanging out with River and his girlfriend, I believe, Samantha Mathis, I want to say.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And his brother, I think, was there too, Joaquin. And we're all hanging out partying, as you do in Hollywood, and everybody's really concerned about John Frusciante. I think with the whole heroin thing, and I believe
he was bad.
Yeah, and I believe somebody got sick on stage. Everybody's really concerned about that. We all decide to go take the party elsewhere. And so as we were walking out, I believe River was in front of us with his girlfriend, and Christina and I and Sean were behind him. And we were going to go to like another location, like somebody's hotel or something that can continue partying. And he dropped right there, right on the sidewalk. And it was so surreal because we were just like, oh, he must have just fainted, Like, he didn't seem that fucked up, nobody was really that concerned, but you never know with this stuff, like what kind of chemical reaction might happen. But it was pretty jarring, because then like we just all kind of stood around. I believe Flea tried to resuscitate him. There might have been a security person. Yeah, it was really, really scary. And then the ambulance came and took him. I didn't know that he had passed until I wouldn't even think that he died. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you just thought he just drank too much and passed out or something. So yeah.
It was the next morning. My boyfriend called me. He was in England. And do you remember Jason Nesmith? He was my boyfriend at the time.
Yeah, I love Jason. And we still catch up on occasion. I love Jason.
Jason's really cool. His dad was Michael Nesmith, right? So he was with Ione, I believe, and Donovan. And they were friends with River, and they had heard in England that River died. So I get a call from Jason in the morning, like wakes me up and says, "Did you hear River Phoenix died?" And I was like, I was with him. You know what I mean? Like, we were all hanging out, like, just shocking. And then, of course, Christina was really torn up about it. Like, and there was paparazzi there, and I remember them catching Christina crying, and like it was just so messed up. One of those awful.
Did you spend a period of time sort of just trauma bonding your PTSD between all of you?
Yeah, like we didn't even want to stay home alone. Like all three of us girls were like, do we need to all sleep over together? Like, yeah, it just felt really scary. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Viper Room, who I've started hanging out with somewhat regularly do you remember Sal?
Are you kidding me? Sal was my name. Yeah.
I love Sal too. And, Sal moved here from Miami the same time all of our other Miami friends, Jeff and Robin and, all those people moved here. And I ran into Sal at a cigar place that I go to sometimes to go write, once in a while I'll smoke a cigar and he's like always there. So now Sal and I will get together and just sit around like old men and smoke a cigar and exchange ideas. But I love that guy.
Sal's really cool. Sal, I lived across the street from him with Tracy, right?
Yeah.
And Sal was on the street, hanging out. We were on Fuller and Melrose. So it was a very happening spot in the 80s because it was right there at Melrose. You could walk to everything. It was really cool. Lots of cool people lived on that block. And my dog, Dave, Tracy and I had a dog named Dave, a white German Shepherd, and it ran across the street and it got hit by a car, and Sal took me and the dog to the vet. Like, he picked up the dog, took it to the vet, and he paid for everything and was just like the biggest gentleman, saved my dog. Like, I owe Sal.
He's such a good guy.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have Sal on the show. I bet he's got stories.
Well,
Do you remember all those secret shows at the Viper Room?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like, my hookup wasn't through Sal. I didn't know him yet. Johnny Depp had this agent who went to my high school named Tracy Jacobs for many years. And Tracy had her own booth at the Viper Room, and there was a brass plaque on the wall next to it that said, "This booth is this is the personal property of Tracy Jacobs. If you value your life, don't fuck with it."
Right.
But Tracy didn't like going to concerts or didn't like loud noise. So if there was ever a show and I wanted her booth, and there's not that many booths at the Viper Room. There's 6, 7, maybe.
The stage or the second one?
Yeah.
Right.
The second one, the middle one.
Yeah, I remember.
So she hooked me up with Sal, and I'll admit I was getting a little bit piggy about it, like I was bringing too many people, and but I went to like Prince there, Bruce Springsteen, I think, Smashing Pumpkins, like all these amazing shows. And then finally I met Sal. He was just like, "Dude, 6 is your max. That's how many will fit in the booth. You plus 5, no more, please." And he was really nice about it. And, we worked that one out.
Those were good days.
So you were also a kind of a poignant moment in history. You were with Gwyneth Paltrow and our pal Donovan Leitch when she got the role in David Fincher's Seven, just before she started dating Brad Pitt.
Yes. So, and I forgot about that story too. But it's a fun story. So Gwyneth was going out with Donovan, and I was going out with Jason.
Mm-hmm.
This was in the 90s in New York, and they were in a band called Nancy Boy, and they were really cute and fun. And
they were like the Fashion Week band. Whenever I went to New York Fashion Week, they were always playing all the cool parties at New York Fashion Week.
Yes, and they were signed by Ford as a band. Like, they had comp cards. Like, they were so great. It was really fun. And so Gwyneth was going out with Dono, and we were supposed to meet Dono and Jason one day at Raoul's. And as you do. And Gwyneth's apartment, I believe, was right across the street. The coolest apartment I've ever been to in New York to this day. Even before she was famous, she was famous. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And the guys, this is before cell phones, and the guys were taking a long time. Like I want to say like an hour's passed. I remember Matt Dillon came in and Gwyneth knew him and he sat with us and I was just dying because he was like a heartthrob when I was a kid. And I was like, Matt Dillon, oh my God, right? So we were talking about how cute he was and Matt Dillon leaves and I was just like, wow. And then, so I was saying how cute I thought Matt Dillon was. And she's like, what do you think about Brad Pitt? And I was like, I guess he's cute. And she's like, well, I have a message that I need to play you. Like, let's go to my house. You're not going to believe this message, right? And so we leave. The guys never show up. We leave. We go across the street to her house. She has an elevator that opens up into her kitchen. So it's just to give you an idea in Soho, right?
Casual, yeah.
Yeah. And she plays it's like an answering machine. I'm really dating us, right? So, and it's Brad Pitt. And he's like, hey, Gwyneth, I want to be the first to, welcome you. You got the role. And I was like, oh my God. Right. And now Gwyneth had just done, this is another good like indie movie that people don't talk about. Dorothy Parker in The Vicious Circle. I don't know if you ever saw that one. But
I know, no.
But yeah, Gwyneth had just done that. And I remember going to the premiere with her and like, she was topless in it. And I was like, oh my God. Right. But anyways, that movie's worth seeing. It was really good. But so it was a big deal for her to get 7, right? And not be naked.
Yeah.
And anyways, so we were like, oh my God, Brad Pitt called you personally, and that's hot. Right. And we were like, you could tell she was kind of crushing on him, and we were like,
of course.
Yeah. And we were like little girls. Like, I go, you're going to go to LA and we're never going to see you again because you and Brad are going to be like a couple, like totally joking. Right. And she's like, I know. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and that's exactly what happened. Like, it's exactly what happened. And I never heard from her again. Poor Donovan. I don't even know. I mean, I think they did remain friends, but she was out of there.
Right. This is so bananas.
I've only got great stories about her. Like, she was the only friend I had in New York that had a car. And so if you needed to be driven somewhere, she was like there to do it, which was really cool. And she knew everybody. She knew Lorne Michaels at SNL. And one day the Beastie Boys were doing a show there and it happened to be my birthday. And we knew the Beasties because Ione was married to Adam. And that was, right. And that was Donovan's sister and Jason, right? Like that whole thing. And she had a little surprise birthday party for me while we were there because she knew Lauren, right? Like it was like she was a really cool chick. I'm a fan. Mm.
Yeah. Well, I always say that I have a diverse group of friends. You have a diverse group of friends. So let's jump into your next bro that I have on the list. You're friends with Jane Fonda. Tell me about your relationship with Jane Fonda, how you met.
Actually, we don't really talk anymore, but there was a time where I was friends with Jane Fonda. And I ended up at her house for a 3-day weekend over Thanksgiving. And to give you a little background, I was dating her lawyer, who was also working kind of as her manager and like rebranding her. And he did a really good job because she really started working after that. But she was very gracious and invited us. Oh, they had to work on some stuff. And so it was Thanksgiving weekend and she's like, just stay at my place. And Ted Turner had bought this place for her. There was a river running through it. Like I woke up in
It's not a house, it's a ranch.
Yeah. On like Indian burial ground too, like on this beautiful property. And I woke up the first morning and she was fly fishing, by the way. And I look up, what? There she is out there fly fishing. And she caught fish too. She was amazing. And so our boyfriends were friends. She was going out with Richard Perry. He's a producer.
Oh, yeah, of course. Legend.
Yeah. Who I think just passed, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Jane
totally.
Fonda's the coolest. Like I
So
read
cool.
that she would go like elk hunting with a bow on horseback. Like I was just like, what can't this chick do?
She's so cool. Yeah. So one night, and Rosario Dawson was there, and she's really cool because they're both like activist actress chickies, and so they're like
Yeah.
So it was a really fun weekend. And one night, Jane and I start drinking red wine and smoking cigarettes and just girling out, like as girls do. And she tells me she got this new horse. It's an Arabian, some prize horse, but it wasn't really broke yet. And so it had to be ridden every day, and that she needed to ride it the next day. So maybe we'll all go horseback riding and she can show us the property. Right. So I was exaggerating probably because I had been drinking, and she was like, do you ride horses? And I was like, yeah, I ride horses. I was like, I grew up next to a racehorse farm, and I learned how to ride bareback on racehorses, right? That is true, but I was never good at it. And right, like I was just a daring child, right? But so I probably sold myself a little hard that I knew how to ride crazy horses. So the next day, she has to do an exercise video. And I'm like, you're still doing those, right? But they're coming back or whatever. And I was like, wow, cool. And she's like, but the horses are all saddled up and they need to go. And she's like, especially mine, because it needs to be ridden any chance it gets. She's like, so you take my horse, and I go, no. I'm not taking that horse. Like, and she's like, you're the best rider in this whole bunch. You're taking my horse. And I was like, no, really, Jane, I'm not that good. And I didn't mean it. And oh my God. And she's like, no, you'll be fine. You rode racehorses bareback. You'll be fine. I'm horrified. I get on this horse, and she even says to me right when we're leaving, she's like, you better be good to my horse. Like, he better, be good when he gets back. And I was like, oh my God, I don't want to hurt Jane Fonda's horse, but this horse was a maniac. It was totally wild. And I'm like, whoa. Anyways, we go on this tour of her property. Rosario Dawson's behind me because, of course, this horse has to be in front, right? And there's like a tribal leader that's actually leading this because he's part of the tribe that has like the Indian burial stuff there. And he knows, I can tell he knows I'm full of shit. Like, he's serious.
Yeah.
They know. And
it's not one of those things you can BS your way through.
No, he knows I'm not good with the horse. And he's just like, oh, no, right? So my horse is trying to get in the front, and then Rosario and her boyfriend, who's like some international DJ at the time, they're having a great time. I can hear them talking and taking pictures, and I'm like, I can't let go of this horse because I feel like I'm going to fall off. And it's going around cliffs that are like, you could die. And it's messing with me. I think we talked about horses doing that. Like, it's going under branches to try to knock me off. It's going over cliffs, like to eat something. And I'm like, trying to hold on. Anyways, this goes on for hours. And I'm not even exaggerating about that. At least 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. That I'm holding on for dear life. This horse is running me. I'm just trying to stay on. Like, the tour guy was like, hey, do you want your picture taken? This is a great vista view spot. And I was like, no, because I can't get my hands in my pocket to get my phone. Like, I got to get back to the house.
Too crazy, yeah.
Yeah, and so I was in so much pain, just cramping up and everything because I was holding on so tight. And I was so scared that I was going to die or I was going to hurt the horse. Oh, that's the other thing. Like, I was afraid to even control the horse because I didn't want to hurt it. So it was a recipe for disaster. This horse, when the horses go back to the barn, basically back to the ranch, they just start hauling ass. That's what it did. And it got right out in front and it's going so fast. And I'm holding on for dear life. And I see Jane and my boyfriend waving down there like, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to eat it. And now I'm going to eat it in front of them. They're going to know I'm full of shit. And like, thank God somehow I stayed on that thing right into the barn. And Jane was like, see, you are a good writer. I knew you were. And I was just like, oh my God. To this day, thank you, God, that I got away with that. Like, that was some scary stuff.
Good Lord.
Wow.
How about, I know you've spent some time with the Rolling Stones and especially Mick Jagger.
Okay. Well,
couple anecdotes, please, if you would.
Yeah. So this, I have to preface this with, these are Sarah's stories. So Sarah,
Okay.
this is the plan.
Yeah,
This, like, she's coming in this a lot. She
yes, Paula's friend and my kind of friend who dated Mick.
So she had a thing with Mick when she was 18, 19, 20, I believe. I think they met when she was underage, and Mick actually, did the proper thing and waited. So they had this, dating, I don't know what you call it, but they had a thing, and we used to get to go to the concerts. It was like Steel Wheels, so whatever time that was.
Yeah, that was.
And it was called something else in like Europe.
Yeah, that was, like 80s, yeah.
Yeah, so they, I'll save those stories for her, but I will say some of my stories so that I can speak to, right? Because she's got some great,
sure.
She's got some great stories.
Yeah.
That's for another podcast, But
okay.
So we'll cut to, I'm in New York. This is like a million years later. I'm in New York. Go see the Stones, and then I go to an after party, and it's like, I want to say it's like at Mr. Chow's or some New York cool staple. And I'm really nervous, and I want to talk to Mick, but I'm embarrassed, and like all the old girlfriends are there too, like Jerry Hall's there, and just like all these celebrities and stuff, and I feel dumb going up to Mick, and I don't want to be that person, but I'm dying to talk to him, and he sees me, and he's like, oh, are you? Yeah, like he recognizes me, and I can't believe it, and I was like, yes, I'm Sarah's friend, I'm Paula, right? And he's like, Sarah Jane, and he goes, what's your surname? And I'm like, excuse me, I never heard the term surname before. So I didn't know that meant your last name. So I'm like, and he's got the accent.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? And I feel so dumb. I have to be like, what's his surname? And he's like, her last name, love. And I was like, oh my God, I want to die. Don't I tell him? He's like, let me get her phone number. Like literally writes it on a napkin. This is how old school this is. And he goes, I go, she's living in, he was like, where is she? Right. And I'm like, oh, she's living in Georgia now. Right. So, he's like, we're going there like tomorrow night or something. I'm going to call her. And I'm like, oh, this is great. Now, this is before cell phones. I don't think I called her to tell her that I gave Mick Jagger her phone number. And this is like a million years later, right? She's living in the suburbs in Georgia. And she's moving into a place with her fiance, and they unplug the answering machine from her house and they plug it into their house that they're moving in together. And it's the first message that they press play. And he's like, hello, Sarah, it's Mick. Like, I'm in town. And he's like, Mick Jagger? Like, Mick Jagger is like in town wanting to see you. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, oh my God, it just blew his mind. You know what I mean? Like, and the bummer is I don't think they ended up going to the show, but it's just like a funny thing, to this day. Like we laugh about it, like what that must have been, you're moving in with someone and they have their answering machine and it's freaking Mick Jagger leaving a message. And his voice is like unmistakable,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wait, were you, or was it a Sarah story at Tokyo Disney?
No, that was a Sarah story. But but they did, rent out Tokyo Disney for their friends and family, just the Stones. And I guess that's what they do, right?
That's just power. Just be like, yeah, we're gonna just have the whole place to ourselves.
And then there was the other story, and this again is a Sarah story. But I think you might have heard a similar story from somebody else, because So the Sarah story is, and again, I gotta let her explain it, and I'll try to keep it. I'll try to keep it together. But that she was at his hotel room, and she found all these Rolling Stones music books like on the piano, and she asked him, I guess, I'm ruining the story, but she asked him, why do you have, music books of your own music? And he's like, I can't remember, like the lyrics, right? And I think she actually called me and told me what the lyrics were to Gimme Shelter, because we were singing it wrong or something. So that was pretty funny. And, nowadays you would just ask Google or whatever. Like, so it was so easy, but back then, like, she had to actually call me. So Mick says, and, and he didn't even remember those lyrics, but it was funny because I think you had a similar story. And I was talking to Sarah laughing about this because we're like, maybe that's just something he does in every town. He has his music books, and people are like, why do you have Rolling Stones music books on you?
Yeah, because whoever told me this story, and I thought it was you, but obviously it wasn't, was that Mick had come home late from a run, and my friend was going to have lunch with him, and so he's like, "Oh, come up to my room. I'm going to take a quick shower, just hang out, and then we'll go to lunch." So she's sitting on the sofa, and she sees a Guitar Center bag on the coffee table, and she's like, "What could Mick Jagger possibly be buying from Guitar Center?"
Yeah.
And she peeks in the little red and white plastic bag and sees a bunch of Rolling Stone songbooks, and she's like, "What's the deal?" And he goes, "Oh, for the lyrics." And she goes, "Don't you know your lyrics?" And he goes, "No." "Do you know all the words to Ruby Tuesday?" And he goes, and she goes, "Yes." And he goes, "Well, that makes one of us." And then she's like, "You could have just looked these up on the internet, right?" And he goes, "Suppose you're right. Suppose you're right."
Amazing.
So, okay,
him.
less funny story. How'd you meet Harvey Weinstein? And let's go through the post on that one.
Ooh, so, okay. I was 19 years old, probably temping at one of those jobs we were talking about earlier. And, but I wanted to be an actress. I was like a model transitioning, and I knew that the Weinstein brothers were like that in independent film. They were the kings of independent film. And so this is going way back to Sex, Lies, and Videotape, was nominated for an Oscar. And I met Harvey at a pre-Oscar party. And of course, he was very charming, and I was very naive. And he was like, what are you doing here? And I was like, oh, I want to be an actress and whatever I said. And he's like, I could help you, and I was like, yeah, I want to do independent film. And he's like, my independent film's up for an Oscar. He's like, if I win, I'm going to have a big party at this house I'm renting in the hills, and I'll invite you and I'll introduce you to everybody. Right. So I'm like, yay. Thank you, Harvey Weinstein. And so I give him my number, all that. He does win. I think it's like the next day or just a couple of days later, he calls me and he's like, hey, having the party. I'll send you a car. And I'm so excited. I get all dressed up. A limo comes, drops me off there, but nobody else is there. And I'm like, oh, am I early? Is it the wrong day? And I'm like, no, but he sent the car. Like, there's not even any cars there, like nothing. And so he answers the door and he's like, welcome, and I know this is bad. The limo leaves. I'm stuck now, right? With Harvey Weinstein, who's a big man, as you know. And a big.
What was he wearing? Was he dressed in party attire?
I don't remember what he was wearing. I just remember how big he was.
Okay.
Yeah. And I remember he was like, so we're celebrating tonight, and I'll pop the champagne. And I'm like, I know it's creepy. And he goes in the kitchen to pop the champagne. I go outside on the balcony to smoke a cigarette because I'm nervous. And I'm like, I already know I'm trapped, and I already feel my spidey senses say, shit's going to go down.
Get out. Yeah.
And he's like, here's your champagne. Cheers. And like, all of a sudden I realize he doesn't have any pants on. Like it happens. I don't even finish my champagne, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah. And, it's funny because I told this story first on 2020 and it was pretty intense. And I didn't
remember that detail.
Yeah, I didn't tell the whole story because I'd never told the story. So and it's about sexual assault, right? So it's not comfortable to talk about. And I'd never talked about it in therapy or anything either. So, anyways, here you have it. The bits that I didn't say because I was embarrassed was that he exposes himself. I get scared. I back up with my champagne to the back of a couch, right? And I fall over the couch with my champagne. I'm wearing a dress. He takes my panties down, right? I remember,
Jesus.
this is so weird. This is how trauma works. I remember putting the champagne down nicely on the coffee table, like this, you know what I mean? Like backwards, because I didn't want to break the fancy crystal, you know what I mean? Anyways, I literally have to fight him off, kicking, like, it was gnarly. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting raped. Great, right? But again, trauma, I guess. Somehow I weasel up. I get my panties back on. I have my heels on. And I start to head towards the door, but I'm backing up because I don't want him to grab me. You know what I mean? So I'm backing up.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it. I was like, I'm sorry. This isn't working for me. I gotta go. Oh, but what I forgot to mention was when I was on the balcony having the cigarette, I already thought if the shit goes down, I'm going to go through these backyards, right? I already had it mapped out. And because it was such a scary situation, it's not just like this guy wants to rape you. I felt like he might really hurt me. Do you know what I mean? Like it felt scary. I was terrified. And so
it was really high up in the hills?
Yeah, it was the top.
Okay.
It was the weirdest thing is how nice I was, but that's a thing that happens. Like Fawn is one of them. I was like, I'm so sorry. I gotta go. And I just
because you're trying to negotiate your safety and not make it worse. I get it.
I was like, what happens now? Luckily his pants are down, so he's a little vulnerable, but is he gonna grab me? So I start running through the neighbors' yards because I want to get off the street because I feel like I would be like a sitting duck on the street, right? Like he could just get me. So I want to hide. So I like jump in the bushes. I've got heels on. I go yard to yard to yard. This is in my heels, right? I'm a mess. I've got leaves in my hair. I go all the way down to Hollywood Boulevard. You know what I mean? Like you can imagine.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. I was staying on Hollywood Boulevard. So once I got to Hollywood Boulevard, I was like, okay, like, I guess. And, it was so traumatic. But
you were barefoot, right? You can't run down a canyon in heels.
No,
through backyards, right?
I did have heels. I was pretty good back then. Yeah. I mean, they were all janky and I was scratched up sticker bushes. Like I was a mess.
Yeah.
And then I remember getting to Hollywood Boulevard being like, nobody walks in LA, right? Like, and I was like, God, I hope nobody sees me. Yeah. Crazy.
That is so insane. And I can't remember the connection. So you did 2020 first, and I can't remember what our conversation was about, but I think I had asked you if you wanted to do more TV or something, and then I introduced you to my journalist friend.
Yes, and he was really good because 2020 was pretty traumatic. It's national television. It's a machine, CBS. You know what I mean? Like,
didn't you do some big papers too? Like, I don't know if it was Time or Vanity Fair, Rolling Stone. Like, there's some really big articles.
I ended up doing a lot of press because this was before the Me Too movement, and it was because we want, like, the rest of the girls that had came out, we were all supporting each other, and the girls were just coming out every day, right? Like, there were 100 girls that came out, and there were only 30 of us that stayed together and were like, yeah, we're going to do this because I don't know, we had this bond because we'd all been through the same thing with the same guy. And now we're in the press and people had a weird reaction to it because it wasn't like, yay, silence breaker. It was like, oh my God, are these girls telling the truth? And, it wasn't welcomed at first. And some people were like, yeah, good. And, there was always the Whisper Network. I'm sure you heard that we knew that Harvey was doing these things. Like, I even knew that Gwyneth had a thing with him. And I was mad that Gwyneth took so long to come out. She did finally come out about it.
Yeah, and I was always warning people, so I knew, and like in my business, you meet a lot of people that are new to town because they're there to model or whatever, or act or whatever it is. So I had a list of about 4 guys. I'd be like, first rule of thumb, now that you're here, stay away from these 4 people, and at least 2 of them. No names here, and I'd be like, and then I would give all these girls my regular spiel. I said, listen, if someone's inviting you to dinner to talk about your career, it's not about your career. If someone wants to take a meeting with you, go to their office and do it. Otherwise, they're just trying to get in your pants. And you do your best, and you can warn them, but you can't save them. But I always knew. Everybody always knew Harvey was a dirtbag. Yeah. And I said it before, and I'll say it again. And I want to thank you and everybody else for putting that scumbag behind bars. That's been thanked more times at the Oscar than Jesus Christ himself.
I know. I used to watch the Oscars, and I'd be like, oh God, right? Like, it was so painful. I'm sure for all the women, right? We had to watch people praise him after knowing all that, that was something. I mean, the cool thing now in retrospect is like it ignited the Me Too movement. Now we have a touchstone. We can talk about it, and we can talk about people getting Me Too'd now. And you know what I mean? Like, and it's all about being able to talk about it and taking that power away, because culture's changed since then. And it used to be,
it sure has.
That power dynamic, and there's always going to be a power dynamic when there's celebrity. It's power, right? And money. But that, at least we can see the power dynamic now, right? Like, and we can talk about it. So half the battle, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, so I know a number of people that had bad experiences with Harvey. So our way of sort of like, I always deal with trauma with jokes.
Yeah.
So like when a particular friend of mine would vent about what a piece of garbage Harvey was, and I was just like, but think about it. He'll never sleep in a king size bed ever again. He'll never have a Pellegrino ever again. Wow. He will never have a steak ever again. Yeah. And just all the things that he took for granted. He will never have a suite at the Peninsula in a fluffy white robe ever again.
I gotta say, I never thought it would happen. Like, that's how intense and powerful he was, and what a chokehold he had on the industry. I'm still like, wow, he's in prison? Like, it still blows my mind.
Yeah, and yet Bill Cosby got out, so.
Yeah. Wow. Still.
Still, indeed. All right, so that's our time. But Paula Williams, I want to thank you so much for being here. This was so fun, and you're such a great storyteller.
Fun. And next time I'm in LA, or you come up here, we're hanging out. I miss hanging out with you.
The Bad Decisions podcast was produced by Brock Workman of Herdat Entertainment. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts so you'll never miss an episode. My book, The Big Book of Bad Decisions, is available for purchase wherever books are sold. A special thanks to today's guest, Paula Williams, for joining me today. I'm your host, Scott Nathan. Thanks for listening.